Pizza delivery drivers of Reddit, what was the most up place you've ever stopped at? Story 1. I worked at Domino's and we had to blacklist a guy because he was obsessed with me. He would come in and ask if I was there. If I wasn't working that day, he would just show up the next. If I was on a delivery, he'd wait around in the store for me. He would tell me that he loved me and would ask me out on dates. He was very bad on heroin and made it obvious. The last time I delivered to his house, he ordered about $40 worth of food and drinks and kept trying to hand me a $100 bill, even though I told him numerous times I didn't have the change. He apparently stole his grandma's cell phone and wouldn't give it back, and he and his cousin were screaming at each other. The whole time I'm waiting to get the smaller bills he kept telling me he had. He had nothing smaller than a $100 bill. And he kept arguing with me because he changed his mind and just wanted one pizza and a drink. And I told him I couldn't do that. Story 2. I drove for a bit when things were rough. Day driving on weekdays meant there were only 2 of us, and we got mostly the business park lunches and the SAHM pool parties, and the latchkey kids after school snacks. There was some interesting stuff we ran into. Brothels ran out of apartments, dens out of high-end hotels, but for the most part, it was seniors answering the door in boxers, or tossing flyers on doors, or dealing with snotty brats. There was this one house, though, that made my heart stop every time it came up, which was thankfully rare. Call it instinct or energy or whatever, but I hated that house. And because there was only 2 of us, and I was 20 years younger than the other guy, it was usually me. It was the only house on a single-lane road. To give you an idea of the dissonance here, the major road this little road was off of housed a new McMansion development within 1 mile, and a sleepy little 1950s-style cookie-cutter suburbia development 1 mile in the other direction. It would be really easy to mistake this road for an access road, especially how heavily overgrown that area had become. Once you got on this little road, the first 20 feet or so seemed absolutely normal. It's after you turned the bend and the road turned to gravel that things went crazy. We're talking about the road lined with construction worker and Smokey the Bear cutouts, wrapped in barbed wire holding model rifles, naked store mannequins covered in paintball splatter with BB guns tied to their hands and pointed at the road. Signs every 5 or 10 feet, no trespassing, private property, CCTV recording in progress. You are being watched? No way, Sherlock. You weren't even hiding the cameras. This continued for the next mile, while I was wondering if I should be calling my fiancé and telling him I loved him. Grateful that it was bright and sunny out. So I get to the gate and I call the customer, which was the most normal part of this. I tell him I'm outside, only to be told not to approach the house under any circumstance and not to leave the vicinity of my car. Okay, dude, you know what? I'm intimidated. I'm a 24-year-old woman, a mile into the woods at some psycho's house fort, with crap reception on my phone just trying to deliver a pizza. So I get out of my car, take out the pizza bag, lean against the side of the car, and hope that I'm not making the nightly news. Out walks a guy who, I kid you not, is dressed like he walked off the MIB film set. He takes his pizza and wings, tips me $5, and instructs me on how to turn my car around. I would rather take the strippers 100 times over that house. Story 3. The funniest job I ever had, but man, the crazy I saw and went through. The most messed up delivery had to be when a woman answered with her huge, beautiful Siamese cat. I love that breed, so I ask if I can pet him. She says yes, and I bend down. The cat purrs and rubs against me. All the usual signs of liking it. So I stand up to finish giving this lady her pizza. The cat lunges and bites me above my right eye and wraps all 4 limbs around my head. Panic, freeze. What the do I do? What the is going on? Why isn't this lady helping me? I grab this demon cat from hell by the front legs and just rip them the hell off of me. As I do, my contact lens pops off. All I can think is it's eye skin coming from my eyeball. I throw that freak down and just freak out at the amount of blood that starts pouring out of my gash. The woman brings me into her house and puts a towel on. I tell her she has to take me to the emergency room or call 911, as I can't see to drive myself. After all, it was her cat who attacked me. She drives me to a minor ER place. I get stitches and a tetanus shot. She foots the bill, never see her again. Boss wasn't happy I missed the rest of the night, or had another order in my car. Screw that cat. Story 4. One night, I have a delivery to a pretty rural area. A lot of my deliveries are to rural areas, so no big deal. But tonight it's drizzling and especially dark, so I'm having trouble finding the address of the house I'm looking for. So I roll down the passenger window and use my really bright flashlight, pointing it at mailboxes, trees, posts, anything that somebody might have their address on at the end of their driveway. So I'm driving along like 5 miles an hour, pointing my flashlight when the beam catches a guy wearing a black hoodie at the end of an obviously long gravel road staring directly at me. More of a glare at me, really. But whatever, could just be on the phone or something. Then it gets weirder. I finally find the address I'm looking for and pull up into the drive and hop out of the car. That's when I get the sinking feeling. No cars, no house light, boarded up windows. If you've ever been a delivery person, you know that it's time to get out of there because you're about to get robbed. Right as I'm about to jump in, throw the car into reverse, and nope the hell out of there, I see a man walking across the empty field adjacent to the property towards me. No. Now, I'm a pretty burly, bearded dude, so I don't have to worry a whole lot about deliveries. But this scared the hell out of me. When he gets closer, I see him obviously tucking something into his waistband, what I can only assume was a gun. He then says in a thick, menacing southern accent, "I thought you were the law." I guess because how I was scanning the addresses. I meekly point to my car topper and the pizza in my hand, and he says in the nicest voice you've ever heard, "Oh great, thank you so much. Have a great night." Pays me and proceeds to walk back through the open field in the direction of no buildings, in the rain, with his pizza. For the rest of my shift, I couldn't stop whispering, "What the hell?" The strangest thing that's ever happened to me. Story 5. I was delivering chicken, KFC, not pizza, but my worst stop was pathetic, really. I knock on the door, and I hear a kid yell, "I got it." He opens the door and runs up the stairs yelling to his friends, "The chicken ass is here, the chicken ass is here." After which a crowd of about 8 preteens at the top of the stairs starts throwing change down the stairs at me to pay for the delivery. I asked if they could hand me the money, and they laughed and just threw the quarters, dimes, etc. harder. So I picked up the bag of food and winged it up the stairs at him. It hit the wall, and I split. I told the boss what happened, and if they call to complain, I won't listen or apologize. I'll just quit if he brings it up. I found out later he did get a call, and he told them to get stuffed. Good boss. Story 6. So while I was an undergrad, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. I had a delivery to a dodgy part of town with a delicious pie. When I got within a couple of miles of the residence, a local sheriff's deputy got in front of me. We made all the same turns, and as we got closer, another got in front of him and one behind me. I start freaking out a bit as I've been smoking some weed, but carry on. Finally, we get to the same residence, which is totally surrounded by police in riot gear, guns drawn, and all that crap. I get out with my pizza and discover the house I'm supposed to deliver to is the one with SWAT out in front. One of the officers waves me off and says, "He's not going to need that today." And they proceed to breach the door, to which I return to the car with the free pizza and get the hell out of there. They were added to our do not deliver list, but I don't think we'll ever hear from them again. Story 7. First time to a huge mansion that was renowned for big tips, where you had to go around to the back, to the gate leading to the pool patio. The guy who answered the gate doorbell had been disfigured in some horrible accident. He had me wait while he got his wallet, so I got a good dose of the backyard where a raging party was going on. Coke was being snorted, craziness in the pool, booze bottles everywhere, and it was like midday on a Wednesday. The guy finally comes back, addresses me by name, no name tag, and says, "You don't remember me, do you?" Knowing that I'd remember those injuries, I realized he must know me from before he got hurt, and I stammered out a weak, "No, I don't." His response blew me away. He recalled being in first grade with me at a local Catholic school I attended for 1 year. Then, he went on to detail everything about class that year, the people, teachers, and activities, and that his accident had happened during the following summer. He'd gone through a windshield and a head-on with a semi. I delivered there a few more times and hung out, chatting with him as long as I could. It slowly became clear that the party crowd was just using him for his money. That was messed up enough, but what I also eventually realized was he was stuck in the last normal year he'd lived and, 20 years later, had moved back. IIRC, he'd moved away because his parents died or were severely injured in the accident. As soon as he was old enough to access the accident settlement, and the money was going up that crowd's nose pretty fast. I had no idea how to help him, or even if he wanted help, and eventually started letting other drives take that run. Never saw him again, even though it's a small town. Eventually, he stopped ordering pizza, and then I left for a job elsewhere, but would pass by his house when visiting while my parents still lived there. Fewer and fewer cars were parked out front every time I went by, and the house slowly became overgrown with ivy. Messed up. Story 8. At the mouth of Provo Canyon, on the way down from Sundance in Heber City, Utah, there was a compound that housed a school of teenagers who rebelled, were taking kids that screwed up, and their Mormon parents sent them from all over the country to this hard-nosed place to fix them. I'd have to deliver there about once a month. Parents would feel guilty and send their kids a pizza, paid for with a credit card. The kids, hating their parents, would often put like a $50 tip onto a $15 pizza. This was from 1997 to 2002 when I worked there. After a while, the store manager made it a rule that any tip had to be okayed by the parents, placing the order because he gotten too many irate parents about their kids' smart-ass tip amounts. Anyhow, you had to get buzzed into the main room through this set of double security doors. The guys that worked there were all like 6'2" and 250 and ripped. One time, I go in with like 10 pizzas for the entire group, and one of the guys says, "All of you get back away from the door." He looks at me and tells me to move towards the door. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. All of a sudden, like 3 of the kids attack this dude, and they screwed up. This dude was some kind of Chuck Norris prodigy. They took swings at him with objects from the room like chairs, and he just blocked them with his arms until he could punch back. He dropped all 3 of them with shots to the chest, hitting them so hard they couldn't breathe anymore. I stood there and blinked while he restored calm, telling them, "We didn't need this, guys, and I don't like doing this, but you attacked me. I'm here to help you, but if you use violence to get what you want, you'll have a very tough time here. I'm choosing not to call the police over this." I got out of there as fast as I could. Anyway, the place was messed up because the violence and the whole concept of private jails for kids. Story 9. GPS led me to my city hospital. After getting directions from a lot of employees, I finally found the room. I'll admit now, I really should have paid more attention to the signs, but was in a rush and didn't bother. Luckily, there was a nurse already in this lady's room. I was just going to walk in, drop the food off, and the nurse starts shaking her hands and rushes to me. No. You can't come in here. This is isolation." "Oh, I'm sorry. She ordered a delivery." She went back into the room and asked if the lady ordered delivery, and I heard the lady say yes. I overheard the nurse tell her, "You should have told me." The nurse comes back to me to grab food and told me that if I walked into the room, I would not be let back out or something along those lines. Threw me for a loop. I will pay more attention now, I promise. Story 10. I deliver subs, but one of our regular clients is an old lady in a nursing home who thought it was the 1940s or something. She was super nice, but nobody would deliver to her because she would only tip you like 25 cents because, again, she was living way in the past. But I loved to sit and talk with her, so I always volunteered to do it. The nurses would pay me the tip if they saw me, but usually I only got a quarter. Her delusional state was heartbreaking. She was for the most part lucid, aside from not realizing what year it was. She loved giving me hair/makeup tips, loved talking about men, and always told me stories about her husband, but seemed unsure where he was because she never mentioned him dying or if he visits. She didn't pay for the food. She obviously had dementia. The nurses called the order in. We had the card info, and we sent the order. If the delivery person didn't run into a nurse or find someone to let them know the delivery was made, we didn't get a tip. She wasn't scamming us out of our tip. She was mentally unsound. The nurses even warned me upon meeting her that she will probably think that she's way back in time and find them for the tip. Usually, I didn't run into them, and I felt bad hunting one down to ask them for money when the old lady thought she had already tipped me. I don't know what kind of world you live in, but in the real one, not everyone is out to get you. Story 11. I don't know if this counts as messed up, but it always makes me laugh when I think back to it. I delivered pizzas to a house where an older guy walks out in a robe, sort of mumbling. I hand him the food. He hands me a 20. I tell him it's 24. He mumbles okay and waddles back into the house, comes back and hands me another 20. I go into my pocket to get change, and he slams the door on me. I also delivered to an older woman who told me to come in the side door. The food is about $34, and she hands me what I think is a 40 and is really sweet, asking me how I'm doing and all that. I get back into my car and realize it's actually $60. Two of the 20s were sort of stuck together. I go back to her house to let her know, and she says, "Oh, I know. It's for gas and whatever else you might need." I always remember that lady because it was just such a random nice thing to do and really made my day. Story 12. Drove for Domino's in college and had to deliver to a house in a bad part of town. There were no lights on at all outside, and the grass looked like it hadn't been cut in months. I have to use my phone's flashlight to find my way to the door. I knock, and this elderly woman answers, wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt. She had one eye that was good, and the other one was completely glazed over. She never said a word and kept eye contact with me the entire time that she fumbled through her wallet to give me exact change. Ugh. Meanwhile, inside is a very large man and a little kid. They were both only wearing boxers, and the kid kept trying to run up to help the woman with the sodas and pizza, and the guy kept yelling to sit his ass down. All the while, this woman is silent and staring into my soul. I wish I could say it was a one-time deal, but no. I delivered there a few more times after that, and it was the exact same drill every time. It just felt like something from the Twilight Zone. Neither the woman nor the child had any sort of bruises, cuts, or markings to show that there was any physical abuse. The woman's eyes seemed like it had been that way for a while, and it didn't strike me as a possible abuse injury at the time. I was just an exhausted college student working the closing shift, and I was just trying to get in and get out so I could make more deliveries. Story 13. I was a delivery driver and was working the morning shift. At around 10:30 a.m., I got a delivery to an apartment. Everything seems legit since it was daytime and there's lots of people close by. I knocked on the door, and after 30 seconds or so, the door opened a few inches. The guy was behind the door, so I only saw his face. Still didn't think it was weird because people do that when they're trying to restrain a dog. He asked me to put the pizza on the stove behind him, and he moved back so I could see it was right behind him. I hesitated a second and decided not to do it. Told him I can't enter homes, but I don't mind waiting until he was ready to take the pizza. He asked again and said, "It's right there." So I gave the same answer, really apologetic, but something wasn't feeling right. I realized later how quiet it was. It didn't sound like there was an excited dog back there. So he opened the door, wide open, and was completely naked. And this guy was at least 60 years old and like 6 feet tall. I tried to hand him the pizza and gave him the total, averting my eyes the whole time. He wouldn't give me the money. He kept asking me to repeat the total and moved into my line of vision. I just took a step back and looked straight up. Eventually, he gave me $25 and I got out. I told everyone at the store, and for an $8 tip and a chance to deck the guy, all the boys that worked there hoped he would order again. The next day, he did. When the driver got back, he said he had to wait at least 2 minutes, and when the guy answered, he was only wearing sweatpants. So he was sure he would do it again to a girl driver, so the guy got blacklisted. Story 14. Delivered pizzas for about 2 months. I got an address I've never heard of. It was beyond town and more up a hill. Never been here, and my GPS ain't making sense. House on the right, but all I see is a mailbox and a big tree. I had to turn my car sideways off the road to high beam what was behind the tree. I see a small house, pretty sure it was a 1-bedroom. Thought to myself while carrying 2 large pizzas, why would a tree be in front of the house? Anyways, I knocked on the door, and a nice blonde lady opened it. I told her I have her pizza. She told me to put the 2 pizzas on a small counter while she gets change. It was like a small table counter where you can put your keys when you walk into the house. I thought to myself, it's only 3 feet away max. Plus the door is wide open. So as I came in, I put the 2 large pizzas on the counter. As I put the pizzas on the counter, I saw the lady looking in her purse for change. Nothing to it as I watch her get money. Suddenly, the door slams behind me. A child, maybe around 2 or 3 years old, was in front of the door. All I remember is the back of my hair standing up as this little boy was looking at me with an eye patch. I can remember my hair standing up, but my butt cheek was tightening, like pulsing. Then touched my shoulder and said, he had pink eye. Okay. pat the kid on the head, and left. As I was leaving, my car scraped the sidewalk, but I got a $6 tip. Story 15. I worked as a delivery driver for a very small Italian restaurant/pizzeria during my first semester of college. This one time I delivered pizzas to a swingers party. It wasn't like on the set of a porno or anything. He straight up told me when I was like, having a party? Because he ordered 12 pizzas. He answered that this was his first swingers party and he just wanted to make sure everyone was having a good time.